Welcome back to our study on the book of Romans. This is Sonship Establishment, and this is session number 68. We were looking at the two extremes to what we've been talking about with regard to the searching of the heart. We looked at that first extreme, or that first pendulum swing, as just trying to base it in a feeling, abandoning the Word of God with regard to that, and then trying to make it do something that it was not meant to do. That's all a misapplication of the searching of the heart. But what I want to do now is take up that second pendulum swing. This one does not happen as often as the first one. That first one is the way that if folks get it wrong, that's usually the way they get it wrong. But in this second one, it's just as dangerous because it perverts the true teaching of the searching of the heart just in a different way. So just as the first pendulum swing wanted to exclude the Bible from the process, the second pendulum swing wants to exclude the heart from the process. When we talk about you getting a check in your heart that something isn't right, that ought to make perfect sense because the process is called the searching of the heart. Now, you just can't eliminate the heart out of that process, or why even call it that? Now, I understand that this group usually, so let's talk about what they eliminate. This group eliminates the Word. This group eliminates the heart. And I know what they're doing. They've seen people swing the pendulum over this way, and they have been, they've been caught in that before, or they know someone that has. They've seen the damage that it's done. And so what they're doing is they're kind of being a counterbalance over here to all of that. But even in that honest attempt, they're carrying things too far. And they know that, look, they've seen the phonies say, God told me. And then they've seen how that went. And they really react against that. And I'm going to some trouble to let you know that this searching of the heart is not just about a feeling. We're not giving in to that. But there's no need to be afraid of what God's doing with this searching of the heart, because He already deals with you that way in other areas of your sanctification. As I mentioned to you at the end of the session last week, when let's talk about, in the way that we deal with sin. If something presented itself, you would know right off the bat whether that was a right thing or a wrong thing because of something you had been taught. You didn't need for you to just have a feeling about it. You would know why it was wrong. Now, can I just say that this is a perfect place for me to kind of step to the side and make this point really all it should be. Everything you think about any of those issues really are based in something you know. And it doesn't even have to be right. You just have to believe it. I want to give you an example. I knew a man who pastored a church, and he had a staff, and he thought that on Sunday wearing anything other than a white shirt was a sin. I don't mean he preferred it. He thought it was a sin. He would have loved my shirts. He wasn't just talking about, creams, off-whites, very pale. Yeah, man, if he'd have seen the shirts I wear up here sometimes, you know what? If I'd have worked for him, he would have fired me, because he did fire somebody over that. Now, people that bought into that, when they bought into that, if someone ever came in and just said, hey, I got you this nice blue shirt to wear for Sunday, if they bought into that, you know what they'd instantly be thinking? I can't wear that. That's wrong. See, it doesn't mean what they were taught was right, but they were still making a decision based out of what they had been taught. See, it wasn't them just going, I don't know, I just kind of feel like cream color's okay, but blues are not. That really stemmed out of something that they believed. And that's my point here. This whole thing really does stem out of something you already believe. And something you already know. Something you're already educated in. Now, I laugh at thinking about, the guy that used to do that, because that's, but that's the way he saw it. But when you go back and think about the things that you understand are right and wrong, you get a check in your spirit. Remember I gave that illustration last week about someone asking a guy to be dishonest about how they did their business billing out with that. And you know what? He knew, he's not even in sonship. He knows that's wrong. How does he know? Do you just have a feeling? No, he understands. It's theft, it's dishonest, it's misrepresenting, so all of those things. Now, that should, I think, kind of drive the point home that we're not just talking about a feeling. And that should make this group feel a little better. Because you can't take the heart out of it. That is the way. You're not going to get an audible voice from heaven. You're not going to get it any other way. You can't ask for a sign. God, give me a sign if I'm going the right way. This is the way He deals with you in the other matters of sanctification. He's going to deal with you the same way in this matter of sanctification. That makes perfect sense to me. It's a consistency in the way that He is doing all of that. And that leads me to another point to talk to you about, and that is the further along you go in the education, the more you're going to learn about things that right now you don't give any thought to. When a son, take an earthly son and an earthly father, when he first begins to work in his father's business, he may not understand that his conduct outside of the workplace reflects back on his father and his father's business. But he'll come to that one day where he understands, I not only have to conduct myself properly in the business, I have to conduct myself properly in my life, because that all reflects back. But see, that was something he didn't even think about early on. And because he didn't think about it, it didn't occur to him, and so he didn't get a check about that. Do you see? Again, it's not just coming out of the blue. That check is based on something he actually knows. But then when he learns, one day someone says they're not doing business with it anymore, and they go, why? And they say, well, I saw you doing such and such, and we thought that was pretty reckless, and if that's the way you conduct your life there, how do I know you don't do it any differently if you're handling my business? And all of a sudden he realizes, wow. And because now he knows, when he's out there about to do something stupid outside of the business, he realizes that's going to actually reflect on the Father's business. I'm not going to be able to do that. But see, that's not just a feeling, it's based on something he's been taught. So, you're not going to hear an audible voice, you're not going to see a sign, God's not going to magically bring something up so that you'll know something you previously didn't. You're not going to have to interpret circumstances. And you're not going to just see the searching of the heart, folks, as some religious rite that you practice, like making the sign of the cross. This is something that you know what it's for, you'll know when to utilize it, and you'll know what it's supposed to accomplish in you. Now, I do have to add a couple of things to what we've said so far. The successful searching of the heart depends upon you learning something first. Only when you have learned that are you going to be able then to branch out and to see that in a different way. And that's where the searching of the heart comes into play. And only if that doctrine is really effectually working in you are you going to get that check. That's why you have to become familiar with it first. You have to really get it down. Okay. Now, I don't want to put a time limit on this, but when people start talking about the searching of the heart, you need to understand that it's going to take some time to do the searching of the heart. I'm not talking about, I'm going to sit in here, how long? 2 days, and if I don't get anything, that's not it. But you understand you can't just fly through this. And there's a process that you're supposed to follow. This is not it. I can't, you know. That's not it. I'm emptying my mind, God, so if there's anything you want to tell me, that's not it. In fact, you shouldn't be emptying your mind. What you should be doing is looking at and thinking about what you have already been taught. Do you remember how you were told to overcome sin? You mind the things of the Spirit. In other words, what are the things of the Spirit? The things the Spirit did when He gave you that new identity in Christ, so that when something comes before you, you say, that is no longer who I am. I really am someone differently, and I'm going to behave in a way that's the power. That's where the power comes from to overcome that. Now, you may give in or you may not give in. You may mind the things of the Spirit or you may not mind the things of the Spirit. But you're supposed to occupy your mind with those things. The same way is with this. When you're asking the Father to search your heart, you're not just emptying your mind, okay, God, I'm thinking about nothing, If I feel something, then I'll know that something's wrong. You're not emptying your mind. You're actually thinking about the things you've already been taught about this. How much easier then is it for your Father to have something show up? You know, this is really simple. You know what it's kind of like? Reviewing your work. You do something, and then you go back and you look at it all to see if there's anything there. Have you ever caught yourself? Look, when I type these notes, you think you see a lot of errors? You should see the ones I correct. But again, I'm kind of racing through there and I'm typing it. But when I read back through it, I catch stuff all the time. And still, we show up here and there's still more that I don't catch. And you know why? You can't proofread your own work. Because you know what you're saying and your mind fills in the blanks even when the words aren't there. It's pretty amazing. Someone else reads it and they go, wow, does this person even know the language? But to you, it makes perfect sense. Well, in a very similar type way, I'm just trying to say that when you're praying and you're asking your Father to search your heart, you should be filling your mind with the things that you are dealing with here. And just be thinking about it. Now, that's the way David did it, and that's the way that will work for you. The second thing that I wanted to stress at this point is, do not get upset because you feel like you don't yet have the skill to make the most excellent decision. God's not concerned about that right now. All He's concerned about right now is good path, bad path. Whichever good path you take is fine with Him. So don't worry about that. Later, those things will come. All right, now back to Psalm 139. Oh, there's that other one. Okay. Psalm 139. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. What does it mean to try something in the way it's talked about here? Try me. What does that mean? What'd you say?
Examine.
Examine? That's good. What else? Do you ever try something?
Test it out.
Testing it out? Okay. I was hoping you'd come up with one other word. Huh? Well, okay, that's true. I'm looking for a word actually that's going to fit right into sonship. Think about this. Do you remember this verse? And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Let me give you another one that'll go right along with that. David, by the way, talking in the Psalms. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me. Did I leave that verse? That's not the verse I want. Hold on. That's not it either. I left it out. Psalm 26:2. It's in your notes. Huh? Oh, it's down at the bottom. Okay. Examine me, O Lord, and prove me. You know, that is, you're being examined. You are, but you know what? You're being tested. And tested for what? If you're saying, and I'm going to back up to try me in Psalm 139, you know what he's really saying is, I want you to prove or test or try or, you know, look at this way I have chosen and see if it stands up to the test. I really want us to know, does that really do the job that ought to be done? And it's kind of like, you know, when you're running plumbing, the thing you want to do at the end is turn the water pressure on. You know what you're doing? You're trying it. You're proving it. You're testing it. So that's what David is talking about here when he's saying, try me. He's talking about just this thing I've decided. I want to know if that thing can really stand up. Okay, now I want to take you back to this one, verse 24. And see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Why is he calling it that way, the way everlasting? There's a reason he's using that terminology. What is that? We know what everlasting is. If it's the way everlasting, don't you get the idea that there are ways in which they have ever or eternal benefit? Let me do it like this. The way that you choose now, let's forget about A. You're saying, I learned X, now I've learned Y, and then later you may learn some others as well. When are those going to benefit you ultimately? They do benefit you right now, you know, I mean, as you do them in life, but when are they really going to come into play? In eternity. What you're learning now is going to benefit you in an everlasting way. Do you see? So when he says, lead me in the way everlasting, he's talking about, I want that isn't just something right now, but it's actually going to benefit me all through eternity. I see that in the use of that phrase there. That's something that's being produced in your sonship life that you're going to utilize and live out of and benefit by forever. Okay, now I know that all I've done so far is give you a general idea of the searching of the heart. Are there other questions you could ask about this? Yep. Are there some details that have yet to be examined? Yes, but we're not going to do those. I'm going to tell you why. First of all, because you now know everything you need to know to make Romans 8:26 and 27 accomplish all it was designed to do. When he talks about the searching of the heart in those verses, you know what that's about. But the second reason I'm not going to go into those other details yet is because you can't really get those until we get to Romans 12:3 and you start doing the searching of the heart. Does that make sense? So we've really got to wait until we get over there, and you're going to go home and say, I'm going to learn this thing, and then you're going to start seeing other ways, and then you're going to be asking God, is this right or not? And you start employing that. There's some, I don't know the words to use here, there's some nuance to this that you only get when you're doing it, that is just almost impossible to just sit here and explain. I mean, I could explain it, but I guarantee you it won't be until you get over there that you would look back at this and go, now I know what you're talking about. So there's no sense in to go through all that, because you can't really get that. We can't get that until that. So right now it's kind of like we're in the book learning stage. But when we get over there, we're going to get behind the wheel and put our hand on the gear shift and try to make this work. I can't wait for that. Okay. Now, by the way, and we're finishing this up today. This second section, verses 26 and 27, we're finishing this up today. And when we come back next time, we're going to start the third component of your sonship establishment. It's the biggest section in Romans 8. It's also it's all important, but boy, this one is super critical. I think you're going to really get some good out of that. Okay, so here, let's just go through and make sure that we've got this down. So here's verse 26. Likewise, the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities. Now, we're told that we have some infirmities, and can you tell me what you think it is those infirmities are mainly, not what they are, but why we have them? For the most part, why do we have those infirmities? We all have it. And it's because of what? That's right, because of our inexperience in the education. It's just natural that we don't have all those answers. Okay, here's the next one. Likewise, the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought. Everybody understands that those infirmities that come from our inexperience manifest themselves by us getting in a situation where we won't always know what to pray for. Probably the last time I'll say it now in this section, and that is, you do know how to pray. You're going to come to some things in the education that you're going to need to ask for, and you just really won't know what those are. But God has taken that into account, of course, and made a provision for that. Likewise, the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered by us. The Spirit is obviously uttering them. We can't. The reason we can't is because we don't know what to pray for. Okay? And so what this is supposed to be, folks, is to give you comfort that when you come to that place that you don't know what to say and your Father's waiting to hear it from you, that's not going to stop your education. That's supposed to give you some comfort that you don't have to worry about that and your education is not going to stop. Verse 27. Now here's the second issue in that. That's the first issue. We've been over that one over and over. And I think you all have that, don't you? Verse 27. And he that searcheth the hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because he maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of God. The Spirit not only knows what you need, what you should be asking for, but He knows the very precise way to ask for it. He's really asking perfectly. So when the Father answers him, there is no uncertainty about what's being asked for, and it's all right in line with the perfect will of God. Isn't that great? Now you're going to get there. The curriculum is geared for your success. You're going to get there. But until you do, this marvelous thing is going to be done for you. Now, let's just assemble everything that we know to bring this to the end. The first component of our sonship establishment, there is a godly virtue that is installed in you. Anybody remember what that is? Very good. And that patient endurance is knowing that you're under the bondage of corruption just like the creature is. You're going to go through suffering in this physical body. You're not going to be able to get away from it. Some will be worse, others will have it worse than others, but we're all subject to the bondage of corruption. You are going to have the redemption of this body that's promised to you, but until that time happens, you are going to patiently endure. And patiently enduring means what? That you don't do some things. What is it you don't do if you patiently endure? You don't moan and groan and complain and whine and all of that kind of business. And that's only this doctrine will enable you to do that. You do realize if you go outside these walls and you tell the normal person, dry it up, I know I tell this all the time at the house, I have to tell you the story now. So you'll know a little bit about Joey. Joey's little brother, Davy. Davy was here when y'all were here the last time, right? Okay. Now you probably met Davy. You don't know him well enough yet, but you will. We took a trip up there to see them. We were going up to Mount Rushmore, and so one morning we stopped at McDonald's to get breakfast. And you know, because there was how many? There was six of y'all, and me and Billy, it made 8. Too many to sit at one booth. So we're going to sit at 2 booths. So Mark's wife, Sarita, says to Davy, because he's sitting in the booth with her, she said, why don't you go, there was, you know, tables filled up, but there was one over on the other side. She said, why don't you go sit at that table over there, because there's not room for everybody here. So Davy gets his plate and he goes over, well, actually didn't have his plate, he goes over, and when his stuff comes, he's not eating, he's just sitting there and he's a little despondent. Well, I see him go over and I go, I'll go with you, Davy, we'll sit over here. And so I try to make it like, yeah, this is the guy's table and all that kind of business. It's not working. And he's sitting down there, he's despondent. Well, here comes Joey. And you have to know this about Joey and food. He don't care where he's sitting, as long as he's got food. So he's sitting at the table, and Joey is, I mean, Davy's so despondent. And then finally, Davy goes, I don't understand. I was sitting over there, and my mom told me I have to come over here, and everybody's over there. And I just don't understand why I have to be over here. And he's just really just working himself up. And I see Joey, and I'm thinking, Joey, you know, he goes, Davy? And I'm thinking, oh, here's Big Brother. He's going to comfort him. And Davy looks up, and Joey goes, get over it. And Davy thinks about that for a minute. And he just kind of goes, okay. He just start eating. And I thought, wow, it worked. Now, you may do that if you're Joey to Davy, but I got to tell you, to us, that's kind of a, you know, we patiently endure, and we know why. We know what God's doing in the midst of that. So here's the thing I'm going to tell you. If you go outside these walls and you just say to people, get over it, that doesn't do them much good, because they don't have doctrine to perform that in them, right? But that's what the first part did for you, and that was contained in Romans chapter 8, verses 16 to 25. Then we came to this second part, and there's another godly virtue that gets produced in you, and that is an untroubled satisfaction with regard to prayer. Yeah, you could call it a peace. That you're not worried now because you're going to encounter some things, because you know that's all been taken care of. And that's why you didn't need to know any more about the searching of the heart than you now know, because this is what this is intended to produce. And that, of course, was in Romans chapter 8, verses 26 and 27. You're going to come to a third part now of your sonship establishment. That is going to be found in Romans chapter 8, verses 28 to 39. It's the largest section, and in that section, folks, we're going to go through 5 You're going to go through 5 questions that are meant to reach down inside your heart to a depth that you never anticipated. And you're not going to answer them to me or any other person. You're going to answer those 5 questions to your Heavenly Father. And by the way, don't dread this. Because when you come out the other side of this, you will have finished all three of these components of your sonship establishment, and here's what should be produced in you. An absolute, unshakable confidence that if your Father says it, you believe that, not just because you're supposed to, you really do believe that, even in the face of what looks like a more attractive and a more believable truth. You're not going to doubt Him for a moment. And here's the second thing that will be in you. You'll understand that the sonship curriculum contained right there is absolutely going to succeed in you. The only thing is, you can't quit. As long as you don't quit, it is going to do what it's designed to do. Now, that's the thing that you'll be persuaded of when you get to the end of this. And you've got to have that down, because you are going to be presented not just by the folks you know or by someone that goes to church somewhere else, but the policy of evil is going to present truth to you that looks more attractive, that looks more believable. I mean, use your common sense, man. What in the world are you thinking? And then you've got to put that to rest, settle the issue once and for all, and then move on. That's what this is desired to do. So when your Father tells you, you look at Him as the most trustworthy individual you have ever known. If anybody would tell you the truth, it would be Him. And here's your goal. Your goal is to appear to Him to be the most trusting individual He has ever known. That's what this is supposed to produce. That's the kind of relationship that this is going to do. Because believe, it's as I've told you before, what He's going to say to you, it's not hard to understand. You're going to understand exactly what it is. It's just hard to believe. Because the only thing that's going to tell you that is contained in the sonship curriculum and the other folks in this assembly. And if you happen to run into somebody from another sonship assembly, they'll say that. But that's it. So now, before we end this session, on the things that we've covered about verses 26 and 27, is there some issue there that's causing you a problem? This is the chance for interactive learning. No? Everybody's got it. We've covered those basic tenets. If you don't have a problem with that, then good. I'm trying to invent questions. All right, then we're ready to move to the third section. You do understand we're getting real close now to the education itself. A day you thought would never come. I know you keep thinking it gets postponed out there. We started the book of Romans, and then you realize, oh, sonship. And I go, that's part of your sanctification. Then we get into sanctification, and you realize there's two other components before you get to that. Then you finally got to Romans 8:14. Remember, we had a big dinner that day to celebrate? And now you find out, okay, well, the education doesn't start until Romans 12:3. So we get to Romans 12:3, and then you'll find, no, that's it. That's the start of the education. We just keep kicking the can down the road. Okay. No questions? All right. Now, I do have a few minutes left, but I knew this. I didn't want to take 9 minutes. I don't know what I'd have left, but I knew it wouldn't be much. I don't want to take 9 minutes and start to get into this third component of your sonship establishment. We'll just do that starting next Sunday. Okay. All right, you're dismissed.